Hey everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? You can put in the chat box or you can unmute yourselves. Testing. Yes, great. Can everyone see the orange screen that says we will get started in just a few minutes? Okay, thank you, Cassie. I appreciate it. Great. So we will just get started in a few minutes. We will wait for some more members to join. Thank you everyone for being here today. I do have this nice halo light shining down upon me. Didn't mean for that. It is not purposeful, but it does kind of go with Mary Magdalene here behind me. I tried other spots in this building, and this was the best one where you could see me, but unfortunately there's a glare, so I hope that doesn't bother anyone. Hmm. Hi. Thanks for joining. It's also freezing in this building, so I do have on my denim jacket because it was just too cold in here to have it off. So you get me in a denim jacket with this light shining down upon my face. But here in a minute, we'll look at some Renaissance women so you don't have to stare at my face. Yes, that's what I said, Andrea. I look like I have a light shining down upon me. Very appropriate for the Renaissance. Was not purposeful. Happy accident, like Bob Ross says. So it looks like we have the whole art history gang. I hope some other people show up too. As just a forewarning, not really a warning, but I have my tea with me. So every now and then I will take a moment to sip my tea, catch my breath. So you will see me do that from time to time. The password was at the bottom. It was Rebel in all caps. When you actually click on the Zoom page to go to it, if you scroll down, the password was at the bottom. I don't know how to take the password off, Kaylin. I wasn't the one who set up the Zoom. Yes, there are two pages. You have to click on one to click on another. Hopefully they figure it out. Well, in any case, we are all here. So thank you for coming and joining me on this Thursday afternoon. If you don't know, my name is Erin. I'm an associate course director at Full Sail in art history. And today I'm going to talk about Renaissance rebels, women of the Renaissance who shaped the age. There are GPS points available after this live session, and there is also CE credit available as well. And I think there will be a link at the end that you can click on for credit. The passcode is right below the link on the GPS page. Yes, that's what I thought, Andrea. If I didn't mention it already, if you have any questions during this live session, please, you can unmute yourself, feel free, or you can put them in the chat. I will try to keep up with the chat as best as possible. So let's get started. Renaissance Rebels. Can everyone see my screen, by the way? It currently says Renaissance Rebels by Aaron Offenbach. Okay, great. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Cassie. Great. Sometimes with Canva, it just works a little differently than Keynote, which is what I'm used to. So I just wanted to make sure that you're able to see my screen. Great. So there's this lovely quote by a woman that we're going to study today named Artemisia Gentileschi. And she wrote many letters, of which we still have. And there is this quote that says, "My illustrious lordship, I'll show you what a woman can do." So I liked that as kind of a theme for this art pops that I'm doing on Renaissance Rebels, showcasing women during the Renaissance. So, women who shaped the age. There are four women that we are specifically going to look at today. And the first one is Isabella d'Este, then Sophonisba Anguissola, then Lavinia Fontana, and lastly but not least, Artemisia Gentileschi. The Renaissance. I'm sure you've all heard of the Renaissance, but let me give you a little recap just in case you were unfamiliar. So, the Renaissance was a period in European history marking the transition from the Middle Ages to modernity, characterized by a rebirth of interest in classical art, literature, and philosophy. While often overshadowed by male figures, the Renaissance women made important contributions to art, creativity, and intellectual life. Their achievements demonstrate the power of perseverance, vision, and self expression in a time that sought to silence their voices. So the Middle Ages lasted about 1,000 years. And I'm sorry if you see my eyes look up. I have a dual screen system going on. So my notes are up here and the video is down here. So that's why there's a disparity. So I apologize for that. So the Middle Ages lasted about 1,000 years. And what we typically view as the Renaissance is the Italian Renaissance. So we're going to be focusing on Italy today. While the Renaissance did take place in other countries, we're mainly going to be focusing on Italy. And the Renaissance lasted from about the 15th and 16th centuries, which is the 1400s and the 1500s. Um, as I said, the Renaissance saw a renewed interest in the art, literature, and philosophy of ancient Greece and Rome, and a focus on humanism. We get many different artists from the Renaissance, but we also have scientific discoveries that were made and a beginning of European exploration and colonization that happens at this time. So, this image, I'm sure we're all aware of it. It is the creation of Adam by Michelangelo. It is in the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican in Rome. And that is an example of a very famous Renaissance painting. So on this next slide, I will show you who we are all familiar with. And I call this the masculine Renaissance timeline. So we have Da Vinci over here, who is first. He's the oldest. And then we have Michelangelo, and then Raphael. And the fourth Ninja Turtle that we are missing is Donatello, and he would be over here as well. From Da Vinci, we get new inventions, and we get this lovely 3/4 profile in portraiture. Before, portraits were typically seen in profile view, but with Da Vinci, we get this new interest in this 3/4 portrait view. Egyptian and Greeks used the profile view, but with the 3/4 view, we get to see most of the face and both eyes as well. Think of the Mona Lisa. She is in 3/4 profile. And again, I apologize. I have dual screens going on, so my mouse can get lost sometimes. So if you see my mouse going everywhere, it's me trying to find my mouse, which is funny. I always find it comical. My students find it comical too, actually, in class when I can't find my mouse. So then to compare, we have the feminine Renaissance timeline, who you might not be as familiar with. So this is the timeline in chronological order and the order we're going to be looking at these women. So we're starting off with Isabella d'Este, then going to Sophonisba, Lavinia, and then Artemisia Gentileschi, who is the youngest and overlaps with Renaissance and then into the Baroque era as well. So first up, we have Isabella d'Este. While not an artist herself, Isabella d'Este was a very important figure, female figure, during the Renaissance. She was a patron of the arts, and she commissioned many artists' work. And she also wrote letters to her sister-in-law, Elisabetta, and those letters are all documented. We still have them. She's from Mantua, and in Mantua, they have all of these documents from Isabella d'Este. So her life is very well documented. So we know probably the most about Isabella d'Este from the Renaissance, even though she wasn't an artist herself. She was a leader in politics, which is very rare for a woman during this time. She was a rebel, some might say. She was also a fashion diva. She loved clothes, loved fashion, was always in the new trends. And many poets and authors wrote about her. They called her the liberal and magnanimous Isabella, as well as the most supreme among women. Another author hailed her as the first lady of the world. What a high honor. She served as the regent of Mantua during the absence of her husband and the Marquess of Mantua during the minority of her son. She was a prolific letter writer, as I mentioned, to her sister in law, Elisabetta Gonzaga. And she grew up in a cultured family. She had a refined education. So that is why she had this taste for literature and the arts because she grew up with this classical education. She had a little more benefits going for her than most people. As I mentioned, her life is extremely well documented, so we know a lot about Isabella. This portrait here is called Isabella in Black, and we attribute this to Isabella. It is presumed to be an idealization of the 62-year-old Isabella by Titian. So this is presumed to be from 1536. Um, it is idealized because obviously she is beautiful in this photo. She does not look 62. And despite her significant art patronage, Um, there are very few surviving portraits of Isabella. She actually didn't like to be painted, whether she was insecure about her looks or she just didn't like sitting for a painting. We don't know, but there are very few surviving portraits of Isabella. We do consider this to be one of them, even though it is uncertain, but we attribute it as Isabella d'Este, and it is the best surviving one that we have. There is another one done by Leonardo da Vinci, and I was reading about this, and it was very interesting. The headpiece is giving, Shaylin. Yes, she's a fashion queen. So I was reading about this portrait that Leonardo da Vinci possibly did of her. And Isabella d'Este is rumored. It's probably not the case, but there's conspiracy theories out there that the Mona Lisa was maybe Isabella d'Este. Now I know you're going to say no, it's Lisa Gherardini. We know this. Her husband commissioned the painting. And yes, it is widely accepted that the Mona Lisa is Lisa Gherardini or Lisa del Giocondo. Um, but there is evidence to suggest that Isabella d'Este wrote Leonardo da Vinci and asked for a portrait done of herself. And we have these writings, as I said, they are all in Mantua and they're archived. And there is a profile view of Isabella that Leonardo did, just a simple sketch. And it looks, kind of similar to sketches of the Mona Lisa. So it is theorized, or I guess it's a conspiracy theory, that Isabella d'Este was like the runner up of who is the Mona Lisa. But I think we all pretty much widely accept that it was Lisa Gherardini. But it was a cool conspiracy theory to read about. And Isabella d'Este would have known all of these very famous painters and artists in Italy during the Renaissance. She commissioned a lot of artwork for her studiolo, which is a private study in Italian, and they would hang in her personal studiolo. She comes from money, married into money, so she did commission a lot of very famous artworks. So we have Isabella d'Este to thank for a lot of the artworks from these Italian Renaissance painters, such as, oh, is it Duke? No, I've test run this. I don't know how many times, you guys. Can you still see my screen if I do that? Is that, can you see those paintings? Yes. Okay. Canva loves to do this to me. And that's one of my pet peeves about using Canva is when you're in presenter view, for some reason, sometimes the images don't show up. I don't know if Maya, you have a workaround that. It's happened to me more than once. So if you can see these, we're good. Um, so this first one over here is by Andrea Mantegna. Sorry, get my notes in order. And this is Parnassus. It is a mythological allegory celebrating the Muses and Apollo. Then this one in the middle is Pietro Perugino, The Battle Between Love and Chastity, the two sides. And then over here by Lorenzo Costa, we have the allegory of Isabella d'Este's coronation. And all three of these are at the Louvre. And this one, the coronation, is designed to crown the cycle of mythological paintings in Isabella's studiolo and inspired by themes from her court poet and reflects her views as a virtuous ruler. Now, I find it interesting that all three of these kind of look similar. It reminds me of like a Hieronymus Bosch painting, who is a Dutch painter during this time. They're just kind of, kind of flat. And even though they're by three separate painters, usually you just need to exit presenter mode. Okay, I will try that. Let's try that. Doesn't look good. It's okay. You saw them. But she commissioned a lot of other art as well by Leonardo da Vinci, by um, oh, my mind is blanking. Titian. Titian is a big one. So the portrait of Isabella in black we attribute to Titian. Next is Sophonisba Anguissola. And Sophonisba wasn't from an artist family, but her father was a nobleman. So also born, you know, a little upper class. He recognized her talent early and arranged for her to study art, which was unusual at the time for a woman. Do you see a theme forming here? Women breaking boundaries. They're rebels in their own right. That's okay, Maya. Not your fault. Thank you for trying to help. Sophonisba is known for her intimate portraits that captured the psychology of her sitters. Her fame grew so widely that King Philip II of Spain invited her to court, where she served as a painter and even gave lessons to the Queen. She was celebrated across Europe as a woman who proved that women could excel in fine arts and not just crafts, which is a subject that we have tackled many times in art history. So this is a self-portrait of Sophonisba. Hold on, let me find my mouse again. So funny. Giorgio Vasari is known as the author of The Lives of the Artists, and this is a book that details many of the Renaissance masters, such as Da Vinci, Michelangelo, Raphael, the ones we know, but he does praise Sophonisba in The Lives of the Artist. So Vasari writes that she has better grace than any other women of our time. She has not only succeeded in drawing, coloring, and copying from nature, but she makes excellent copies of works by other hands and um, has beautiful works of paintings. So that is by Vasari, who, if you take art history, you might need to read the lives of the artists. I know I did when I had to take art history for the very first time. So we do have an author that mentions a Renaissance female artist. So this is her self-portrait. And we see women do these self-portraits in the act of painting. And I think it's a way to prove to the viewer, which is us, that they can paint. They're seen with the paintbrush in their hand, showing what they can do. And it's also very meta, right? Like you're looking at a painting of a woman painting a painting, you know? So there's a lot of depth behind it, a lot of meaning, and basically showing off their talent. I'll show you what a woman can do, says Artemisia. So this is the chess game, portrait of the artist sisters playing chess from 1555. So these are Sophonisba's sisters, and I had their names. They have very bizarre names, and I can't remember them because I didn't write it down. Of course, I think one of them is Minerva. Like their sisters, the sisters had some odd names. They're in the act of playing chess, which also it shows that they are educated young women. And this little girl is smiling, which is just, I think, a little unusual to see a smile and to show teeth in the Renaissance. And they are being chaperoned by their nurse or nanny or whatever you would call this person, maidservant. Here are three other works by Sophonisba. Oh, yes, here are some of the sisters' names. So, portrait group with the artist's father, Amilcare and Gazzola, and her siblings Minerva and Asdrubale. Am I saying that right, Andrea? Asdrubale from 1559. I always love a painting with a dog. We'll see some more coming up, but I love the talent of including the family dog. Portrait of Eleonora de' Medici. The Medici family was a very wealthy banking family, merchant family in Florence at the time in the Renaissance. They commissioned a lot of artwork. So we do have a lot of artwork to thank. We have the Medici family to thank for a lot of artwork. Um, so this is one of the Medicis. And then self-portrait. Wow. Older from 1610. Okay, up next is Lavinia Fontana. Lavinia Fontana, pardon me, just getting my notes. She actually did grow up in an artist household. Her father was also a painter, Prospero Fontana, who trained her. Lavinia's career was groundbreaking because she was one of the first women to work professionally and earn a living from painting, which again was what? Unheard of for women at the time. A rebel during the Renaissance. The theme. She painted portraits of noble women and clergy, but also ventured into mythological and religious scenes, subjects typically reserved for who? Men. Fontana balanced a busy workshop with family life, raising 11 children. I can't imagine. Her success set the stage for women to be recognized not just as exceptions, but as professionals in the art world. She is regarded as the first female career artist in Western Europe. So thank you, Lavinia, for setting the ground, preparing women for the future to become artists. Her family did rely on her as a career, as a painter, and to help raise their 11 children. She was perhaps the first female artist to paint female nudes, but this is a topic of controversy, but we will see some female nudes coming up. So just to forewarn you, we might see some female nudity coming up. So this is Lavinia Fontana's self-portrait. Again, we see her in the act of doing something. And this is very common among female self-portraiture during the time. This is a self-portrait at the Virginal with, oh no, excuse me. Her self-portrait at the Virginal is considered to be her masterpiece. We'll see that on the next page. So this is a self-portrait, but her self-portrait at the Virginal is considered to be a masterpiece. And she did self-portraits by looking at herself in the mirror, which is, I think, commonplace for portraits. You look at yourself in the mirror to paint. Okay, before we look at her masterpiece, I do like to show this one of Judith and Holofernes. So, this subject is one of my favorite subjects to talk about. The story of Judith and Holofernes is a biblical story from the book of Judith, and it is about a Jewish widow who uses her wit and bravery to sneak into the general's tent and behead him ultimately and save her city. So Judith is a beautiful, devout Jewish woman from the town of Bethulia. Bethulia is being sieged by the Assyrian army with their general Holofernes at the lead. And when her town is on the brink of surrender, Judith decides to take action. So this is a femme fatale story, the femme fatale of all femme fatales. She dresses alluringly and enters the camp, pretending to offer insider information. And Holofernes is smitten. He's about it. So he invites her in, invites her to this lavish banquet. He drinks heavily at this banquet and passes out. Judith then picks up Holofernes' own sword and beheads him and returns to her city of Bethulia with his head. So, with his head, they know that the Assyrian general is dead. The army flees, and Judith has saved her city. Now, this is a very popular theme to paint during the Renaissance. It will not only be painted by Lavinia Fontana, it will be painted by Caravaggio, who we know as kind of the Baroque father figure, and then by Artemisia Gentileschi, and we'll look at hers next. But I like this rendition of Fontana's Judith and Holofernes. We always see the maidservant helping Judith in some way, shape, or form, usually bagging the head or carrying the head for her, or in Artemisia's version, actually helping with the beheading. Kind of a dark subject, but was relatable at the time. Florence, was going through a lot, and they thought themselves as kind of this underdog that would come out in God's favor. So this story of resilience, of being chosen by God, people related to that theme. Let me find my mouse. So sorry. There it is. Okay, so her self-proclaimed masterpiece is Self-Portrait at the Virginal with a Servant. Now, a virginal is this harpsichord piano instrument. Google Arts and Culture also calls it a spinet or spinet. I'm not really sure how to say that, but it's similar to a harpsichord. They no longer make these instruments. I had to Google because now we have pianos. But it's similar. You pluck a key and a chord rings, and it's that type of instrument. Now we see her kind of go into a mannerist style later in life, which happens after the Renaissance. So we're getting into the later years of the Renaissance. So we see this mannerist form of art kind of emerge. And we will see that with Artemisia as well. So here is Portrait of a Noblewoman. We have this cute little dog. I love when they include animals. Look at this little dog. This dog doesn't look proportionate to me. It looks tinier than it should be. It looks like a little beanie baby. But this is Portrait of Costanza, 1595. Okay. Artemisia Gentileschi. You know, they tell you not to pick your favorite child, but that's hard to do because j'adore Artemisia, not only for her art, but for her story as well. She is a boss lady, you know. She went through a lot in her life. She's resilient. She's a painter. You know, all these women are rebels and boss ladies for being artists during this time when it was predominantly a male profession. So, you know, kudos to all of them. Artemisia, her life is also very well documented. We still have a lot of documents, so we know a lot that went on in her life. So I think that is why she is studied more, because obviously we have more documentation to study. As a forewarning, before we go any further, I do just want to give a content warning in discussing Artemisia Gentileschi. We will briefly address the topic of her sexual violence and experience with rape, and this material may be difficult, so I'm going to try to address it with grace and dignity. But if that is something that you need to step out for, disengage, that's totally understandable. But it is a part of Artemisia's story, so I do just want to give that forewarning. But as I said, while very deeply traumatic, I think it also helped shape her career and make her the resilient woman that we know, and it transformed her art as well. So, Artemisia Gentileschi, um, Italian Baroque painter. So, I'm cheating a little bit because this is Renaissance Rebels. Artemisia technically falls under the Baroque, while kind of beginning in the Renaissance times. She wasn't painting, you know, when she was 3 years old. So she really falls into the time period after Caravaggio, and Caravaggio is known as our father of the Baroque. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt, Renaissance rebels. But she's considered among the most accomplished female artists of this time period, initially working in the style of Caravaggio. Caravaggio kind of produced what's the word? Pioneered this method called chiaroscuro, which is literally just the play of light and shadow within a painting. So during the Renaissance, we have brighter images. Think of the creation of Adam, for example. But with the invention of chiaroscuro, we have more dramatic lighting. Think of theater, think of drama. We get that with the Baroque. So Artemisia is learning from Caravaggio, and she is also going to use chiaroscuro in her paintings as well. In an era when women had few opportunities to pursue artistic training or work as professional artists, Gentileschi was the first woman to become a member of the Accademia in Florence, the Accademia of Artists in Florence. And she had international clientele. I mean, she was widely known as an artist. One moment. She was producing artwork at the very young age of just 15. She was taught by her father in her father's studio, who was also a painter. Um, his name was, it's Orazio, right? Orazio, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Orazio Gentileschi, and she learned from her father in her father's studio. Um, just going over my notes so I don't miss anything. So it is around this time that a man and a fellow painter named Agostino Tassi assaults Artemisia at a very young age. And he it's rumored that he wanted to marry her after this sexual assault so that it wouldn't dishonor her family name. But then Artemisia found out that he was already married. He was older, by the way, as they always are. Um, and she found out he was already married. And so, because of that, because that Agostino Tassi could not marry Artemisia, they actually took him to court and there was a trial. And we have the trial documented. And it's all very rare to happen for this time. Now, the trial wasn't so much because of the sexual assault, it was mainly to keep the honor and social reputation of the Gentileschi family name. So it was more about politics and less about the trauma and psychological damage that Artemisia would go through. But steps were being made in the right direction. There was a trial. He did get convicted and exiled from Rome. So happy about that. But it did shape Artemisia into the woman she became and the painter that she became. It is part of her story. It is deeply embedded in her. And because of that, we have a very women central ove from Artemisia, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So, one of the first paintings I'll show you, again, my favorite subject, Judith and Holofernes. Now, in this one, before we saw the aftermath of the beheading with the maidservant kind of gathering the head. This one is literally in the act of beheading Holofernes on his bed. So we have Judith here who wields the sword and her maidservant helping her, whether she's pinning him down or what. But she's, you know, an accomplice in this. She is helping Judith. I always love to point out to students in class that this was painted by a woman, and we can tell because of the natural forms of the female body that Artemisia paints. And when painted by a male, it sometimes does not look as natural. And that is a very polite way of saying painting the female body. So I really love the soft way that Artemisia paints the female body. And all of this dark shadowing around, this is the drama of the Baroque. This is the chiaroscuro that I was talking about. Now, I always like to compare and contrast Caravaggio's Judith beheading Holofernes. So over here, we have Caravaggio's from 20 years earlier, look. And then we have Artemisia's from 20 years after Caravaggio's. So she's clearly looking, she has seen Caravaggio's work, but she puts her own flair on it. And I always like to ask my students, which one do you prefer? So I'm asking you, if you put in the chat, which one do you prefer? Artemisia's on the left or Caravaggio's on the right? Notice the differences, the setting. What are some differences? The clothing. What is the vibes? Caravaggio's over here, I think, is more of a stage setting, it looks like, with this red curtain drapery. We have, I think, not as realistic looking blood coming out, where I think over here, not to be grotesque, but I think the blood flows more naturally over here, and it's a little darker, which would be the color of blood, not so bright as Caravaggio's over here. Their expressions are different. The maidservant is certainly different. Caravaggio gives us this old woman, whereas Artemisia gives us relatively the same age as Judith. Do any of you have a preference? Do you have any other compare and contrasts that you like to point out between the two? Artemisia seems more dramatic, yes. It's darker, yeah, more drama. Good observation. Anyone else? Artemisia's is so much more physical, yes. This looks like, I mean, I don't know. I've never beheaded anyone before. This looks like you couldn't behead someone from this angle. Like the physics don't work out, it seems. She's just kind of like slicing through bread, it seems, you know, whereas this one, it looks like Judith is exerting her whole body force onto, you know, the act of beheading. Judith has more agency in Artemisia's work. Interesting, yes. Great observations. Thank you for commenting, everyone. So I always love, you know, comparing and contrasting those two images. And then we have some more images. So I did mention we will see some female nudity. This is Susanna and the Elders, another biblical story. But we see Artemisia paint this a few times in her life because of the theme, which is kind of this biblical story of sexual harassment, assault, where these two elders are coming upon this bather, Susanna, and she rejects them. So I think Artemisia is telling us through her art how it feels, you know, the experience of what she went through. And we have very powerful women as her central subjects in all of her paintings. So, more versions of Judith and her maidservant with the head of Holofernes. So, this is Judith. We can tell because she wields the sword. Her maidservant always carries the head. So, there's Holofernes' head in the basket there. This one I really like to showcase because of the such a contrast of this chiaroscuro. We have Judith covering her face from the light coming from the candle so that she can see out, see if, they're in the clear. And the maidservant is gathering the head on the floor down here. And this is from 1623, 1613, 1610. We have some more examples, some more female nudity. But this is Mary Magdalene in ecstasy, which is behind me. And this is a popular theme to paint in the Renaissance as well as to sculpt in sculptures. We have Venus and Cupid, which is a mythological subject. And then we have the death of Cleopatra. While Cleopatra was very common to paint as well, it was uncommon to paint the death of Cleopatra. You see the snake right here next to her, and her maidservant is checking on her. Now, the colors here, we know that these are commissioned by wealthy people because of this bright blue color, which is lapis lazuli, and that is a very expensive pigment to obtain for artists at the time. It's very rich, dense, pigmented, very bright blue. And that's the blue that we see here. So the fact that it's in these paintings, we know that high buyers are paying for these. And this one I just like to bring up that we've always had a fascination with Egyptian art and Egyptian mythology and lore, if you will. Even people of the Renaissance were interested in the Egyptians. It's not just a modern day fascination since King Tut. It's been since forever, I think. I could show you many more images, of course, but that is my short little presentation. Who was your favorite Renaissance rebel? Was it Sophonisba Anguissola? Was it Lavinia? Or my personal favorite, Artemisia Gentileschi? Or was it Isabella d'Este, who was a female patron and political figure and artisan of the time? Does anyone have any questions for me? Isabella was amazing, yes. For her to be kind of a very high standing and powerful political figure as a woman, um, definitely breaking boundaries left and right. Well, thank you, everyone. Please let me know if you have any questions. Remember, there are GPS and CE credits available for attending. There should be a link coming up in the chat, hopefully, to get points for this. But I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you for coming on this Thursday afternoon. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Yes, I enjoy Lavinia's work too. Thank you, Autumn. Thank you, Andrea. So I don't know if there is a link for the GPS points. I have not seen one. No one mentioned at the beginning for GPS points. Andrea, do you know if it's a form? Okay, we will send the names to the GPS office. So for those of you needing GPS and CE points, we will send the names. So don't worry, you will get credit. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.